We continue with the build-up to the Finance Minister's budget speech and now turn our attention to retirement funds. The Treasury has been discussing and implementing some changes to the country's retirement legislation for about a decade now. The changes include introducing the two-pot retirement system, which seeks to strike a balance between maximizing retirement savings by minimizing early withdrawals. It will also allow for early access to retirement savings. Well, let's speak now to Muzi Mabece. He is head of fixed income at Melville Douglas. This is a division of Standard Bank. Mr. Mabece, thank you very much for your time. Before we get into the nitty-gritties, so for people who are obsessing about their retirement funds, which section of the budget speech do they need to listen out for?
I think, good morning, Tony, and good morning to your viewers. I think what is important for those who will be listening specifically and who are interested in what will be said about their retirement savings, I think they should pay careful attention when the minister speaks to retirement savings in general, because that's going to be very relevant to their interests.
All right, let's then talk about this two-pot retirement system. What exactly is at play here? What is the legislation? What does it prescribe?
So the two-pot retirement system, what it prescribes, you remember that I think in 2002-2003 budget, the minister outlined that those who are saving for retirement and who happen to be working, either contributing to a pension fund or a provident fund, what was outlined is that they can access their retirement savings at least once before they reach the retirement age. And the reason why that was the case was, you remember that most especially in these hard economic times, you find that some people, because they needed to access their retirement savings for one reason or another, now they had to resign from their places of work in order to access their retirement savings, whether it's a provident fund or a pension fund.
Yeah.
Now, the new legislation says you can access at least your retirement fund once, and what you can do, you can withdraw from your retirement fund once, and of course the necessary taxes will apply, and the remainder, which is about two-thirds of your retirement, which you will only access at retirement, you will then now have to buy a retirement annuity. So those are the changes, because before, if you were a member of a provident fund at retirement or leaving employment, you could access 100% of your provident fund and restructure it on your own.
Yeah.
Now the new legislation limits you to a third of your retirement savings, and the other two-thirds you are obliged by law to buy a retirement annuity.
Why was this necessary? I get the part about people being forced to leave their work of employment in order to access their retirement funds. It's important to get that history as to why it is that government saw it necessary that people are actually able to access their retirement funds at least once. Why was that necessary?
Well, without going back to the history and the difference between a provident fund and a pension fund, let's fast forward to 2019-2020 when COVID hit. Now, what you saw happening is that people, because some had been retrenched or some wanted to restructure their balance sheets or for whatever reason that they needed to access funds, they could not, because of the stringent regulations around the Pension Funds Act. And people petitioned government. I mean, there were bilateral talks and multilateral talks with government, employees, workers, and government. Two things. realign the funds, both the pension funds and the provident fund, and allow workers to at least access their retirement savings, because people had been retrenched. People were actually, and in this economic climate, people are actually finding it difficult to go by. And so then they petitioned the government to say, allow us at least, without necessarily incurring penalties, early withdrawal penalties, allow us to access our retirement savings. And of course, government is interested in savings culture for its citizens in general, because you can imagine, if there are no provisions made for retirement, it becomes a burden on the government. So to alleviate all of those, then government came to the party and said, well, we will adjust legislation to make that happen, to make it possible for workers who contribute to a retirement fund one way or another to actually access those funds. But at the same time, government is being responsible, because it says we cannot just allow carte blanche access to those funds, because at the end of the day, you still need to save for your retirement.
Yeah.
And hence the introduction of this legislation.
And usually what really does get some people annoyed is that word you just used, the penalties for these early withdrawals. Those tend to be quite steep. If there has been somewhat of a relaxation, what are we looking at now? Or are people actually exempted from these penalties?
And here I will give you my understanding. My understanding is that early withdrawal will not attract penalties. However, what it will do, it will attract tax at your tax rate.
Aha. All right. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. Let's then move the conversation forward. So where are we then in the landscape, the legislation landscape, when we look ahead to these reforms that are still ongoing?
Yeah, because the target date for the implementation of this new regime of retirement savings is the 1st of March. And for instance, what I would expect from this budget speech, for instance, this afternoon from the minister, is for the minister to give further detail and clarity as far as this matter is concerned, because according to plans, it's supposed to be effective from the 1st of March 2024.
Aha. All right, Muzi Mabece, thank you very much for that explanation. Quite an important one indeed as it regards retirement funds. He is the head of fixed income at Melville Douglas. This is a division of Standard Bank.